we want you to know.
Hello, everyone. Have you ever wondered what exactly is meant by the cost of drug addiction? Because when we talk about the price of drug addictions, we are not just referring to the money that is spent on buying illegal substances or abusing legal ones, but we are also talking about the deep emotional, physical, social, and economic toll that addiction brings with it. The sad truth is that addiction does not just ruin the life of the person who is using drugs, but it also has a profound effect on their family, their friends, their workplace, their community, and even their nation. And if we really want to understand the gravity of the situation, we must dive deep into all the aspects of addiction and see what it costs us all. So let's explore this complex issue together. Let's talk about it, and let's start this journey toward knowledge. So first off, let's talk about the health costs associated with drug addiction. Because constant use of substances like cocaine, heroin, meth, opioids, or even prescription drugs can have serious consequences for the body and the mind. Think about it. People who struggle with addiction often face a range of health problems, from damaged livers to heart disease, lung issues, weaker immune systems, strokes, and even brain damage. Not only that, but they also tend to have shorter lifespans, which means that the years that could have been filled with happiness and achievements are cut short by the harmful effects of drugs. It's sad, but that's the reality. But it doesn't end there. Drug addiction also takes a toll on mental health, leading to increased rates of anxiety, depression, paranoia, mood swings, and in some cases even psychosis, which makes it hard for people to function normally in everyday life. Dealing with these conditions requires medical care, therapy, rehabilitation, and in emergencies, even hospitalization and treatment for overdoses. Imagine the financial burden this places on individuals, families, and even healthcare systems around the world. It's a heavy one, and that's just the direct health impact. The indirect costs, like the emotional stress and reduced quality of life, are equally significant but harder to measure, which is why drug addiction is considered not just a personal problem, but a major public health crisis that affects us all. Next, let's discuss the financial costs of drug addiction, because the numbers here are staggering and paint a clear picture of the immense burden drug addiction places on individuals, families, and nations worldwide. The economic impact is substantial and goes beyond just the money spent on buying drugs. Picture this. A person struggling with addiction often spends a lot of money on their habit, sometimes going into debt, selling possessions, or even turning to theft to get the next fix. At the same time, their drug use might lead to job loss due to poor performance, absenteeism, or failing drug tests. This creates a vicious cycle of poverty and addiction that's tough to break. And it's not just the individual who suffers financially. The cost spreads to the family, too. Families of addicts often find themselves dealing with medical bills, rehabilitation expenses, and sometimes even legal fees, which can add up quickly and leave them in dire financial straits. But it's not just families that feel the pinch. Countries, too, bear the brunt of drug addiction as billions of dollars are lost every year due to decreased productivity, workplace accidents, unemployment, and the resources spent on law enforcement, healthcare, and rehabilitation services. In fact, studies show that the total cost of drug abuse in the United States alone is in the hundreds of billions of dollars annually, and similar stories can be found in countries worldwide. Now, imagine what this means for our collective economic growth as a society. When so much money is drained into the costs of addiction, fewer resources are available for education, healthcare, and other essential services. This is why understanding the financial costs of drug addiction is so crucial. It's not just a personal burden, but a public issue that affects all of us. By investing in prevention, treatment, and education, we can help break the cycle of addiction and pave the way for a brighter, more prosperous future. And speaking of burdens, let's now shift our focus to the emotional costs of drug addiction. Because addiction isn't just a physical and financial burden, it takes a heavy toll on the emotions of those involved. When someone falls into the trap of addiction, It affects not only them, but also their loved ones, their friends, their family, and their community. Picture a child growing up with a parent struggling with addiction. That child might experience neglect, instability, and trauma early on in life, which can have lasting effects on their emotional well-being. Friends and family members of addicts often grapple with feelings of hurt, betrayal, and helplessness as they watch their loved ones struggle with their habit. These emotional scars can last a lifetime, affecting relationships, trust, and overall mental health. And the impact doesn't stop there. Communities also bear the emotional burden of drug addiction as rising crime rates, homelessness, and unsafe neighborhoods become a part of their reality. When neighbors live in fear and families are torn apart by addiction, the emotional toll on the community as a whole is immeasurable. As we continue to explore the costs of drug addiction, it's important to recognize that the emotional burden is just as real and significant as the physical and financial costs. By addressing addiction and providing support to those affected, we can help alleviate this emotional burden and create healthier, happier communities for everyone. Now, let's turn our attention to the social costs associated with drug addiction, because these are equally important to consider. You see, when someone becomes addicted to drugs, it doesn't just affect them individually, but also the social fabric of our communities. Let me explain. People struggling with addiction often withdraw from social activities, hobbies, and social groups. They might isolate themselves, neglecting their relationships and responsibilities. This withdrawal can lead to feelings of loneliness, disconnection, and a breakdown in community bonds. Furthermore, drug addiction contributes to social issues like rising crime rates, homelessness, and the spread of infectious diseases. It strains social services, disrupts community cohesion, and undermines the overall well-being of society. Imagine a neighborhood where residents live in fear because of drug-related violence, or a school where students are exposed to drugs and other harmful behaviors. These situations not only create social problems, but also erode the sense of safety and security that we all deserve. By understanding the social costs of drug addiction, we can work towards creating supportive environments that promote health, well-being, and a strong sense of community. Remember, building a thriving society requires collective action, and addressing the social roots of drug addiction is an essential step towards creating positive change. Last but not least, let's talk about the legal costs of drug addiction. Because drug addiction often leads to legal issues, which contribute to the overall cost of this complex problem. Let me explain. People struggling with addiction may engage in illegal activities related to drug use, such as possession, distribution, or even manufacturing. These activities not only have social and health consequences, but also result in criminal charges, court proceedings, and potential imprisonment. Additionally, drug-related offenses can strain the legal system, diverting resources away from other critical areas. Picture the costs associated with police investigations, court trials, and the maintenance of correctional facilities. These legal expenses are substantial and ultimately borne by taxpayers. Moreover, individuals convicted of drug-related crimes often face penalties, including fines, which add to the financial burden of addiction. These legal costs are not just monetary, but also involve the social and human costs of mass incarceration and the disruption of families and communities. Addressing drug addiction through a combination of prevention, treatment, and law enforcement can help mitigate these legal costs and create a safer, more equitable society for all. In conclusion, the costs of drug addiction go far beyond the immediate consequences for the individual user. They affect families, communities, and entire nations, leading to a collective burden that demands attention and action. From health and financial strain to emotional toll and social issues, the ramifications of addiction are far-reaching. We must strive to understand and address these costs through education, prevention, and support services. By working together, we can create a better future, free from the grip of addiction. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Stay tuned for more informative content. Thank you for watching, and let's continue to learn and grow together.